Righto, we're going to get straight into this today. I've been out visiting, and on this case I managed to get to see Richard Morrison from the Gullies. This is quite a long chat, so I've also turned it into a podcast on Spotify. So you can watch it here, and there's the two of us sitting at the table chatting, or you can listen to it on Spotify when you're out driving or out drenching the sheep. Right, let's get straight into that. Calvin here from Shedding Sheep New Zealand, and I'm sitting with Richard Morrison, and the Morrison name has been associated with shedding sheep for a long time. And I normally ask what was before shedding sheep for you, but I don't think there was anything before shedding sheep for you.
Yeah, we've been on this sort of farm or area for over 150 years. So that's sheep for a wee while. But
was it 1864?
Yeah, about that. I think the whoever it was a few generations ago might have come out a bit earlier as a ploughsman or something. So probably even a few years before that. But that's when the title was purchased.
That's when. So you've been farming in the Martin area, your family, for 150 odd years.
Yep.
And
so shedding sheep are a new thing, but that's since early 80s. So that's the last 40 odd years. But
can you remember before shedding sheep yourself?
Not really, because I was pretty young. And yeah, so it's been a part of my life the whole time. But we've always had other sheep as well. So they've been a part of the business, but not the whole thing.
So it was your dad or your granddad?
Father and grandfather together. So yeah, Wiltshire's actually came into New Zealand four half-bred ewes, half Pole Dorset, half Wiltshire ewes, and a ram to coastal Wairarapa, and in 1972, and then the flock was purchased by another guy, Bar Plenty, and he bred them up to about 100 animals, and my father and grandfather bought the entire flock off him in 1982. So whilst it's the original flock, we weren't the originals, but yeah, and that was the starting point back then.
You've actually brought up a really interesting point there, on the makeup of the New Zealand Wiltshire, and I often talk about a New Zealand Wiltshire to differentiate it from a Wilty Pole in Australia or the other ones, because it wasn't actually a pure Wiltshire, was it?
No, I guess a Wilty Pole's not, but it's a Wilty Pole and not a pure Wiltshire too, potentially. So, and there are other derivatives in England that are sort of Wiltshires, but under different names as well. So, I mean, yeah, to be fair, you could probably say from a genetics and a DNA point of view, Wiltshire's probably the most pure breed in New Zealand. And but over time you breed and other influences come in and you try and progress, don't you? So you know, I don't think you want to get too caught up on that. And the reality was, whilst they were Pole Dorset Wiltshire Cross ewes originally, that was the opportunity actually to take the horns off from day one, and you know, they've been kept pretty pure since then, and been bred forward, but physically they look like Wiltshires as they are all in other parts of the world. So that's right. Yeah.
Well, when you look at the Ixlana and the easycare, they actually blend in really well into the New Zealand flock, because they look very, very similar.
Yeah, I think any new breed into New Zealand, it takes a few years with New Zealand farmers to actually New Zealandify them, and one that's through necessity to iron out a few of the fundamental flaws, and all sheep come into New Zealand with pretty bad feet and poor fertility and facial eczema and other things, and black spots and all sorts. So you know, we were also the first to have Texels in New Zealand, but the original Texels were quite different to the New Zealand Texel now. So you know, they've been New Zealandified as well, and that's to the better of the breed in my opinion. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So your granddad and father bought that flock.
Yeah, it wasn't the shedding that was their original appeal to. It was more, at that stage New Zealand was closed to importation of new breeds due to scrapie, and so there wasn't a lot of options, and they changed the killing specifications, and a heavier, leaner carcass was sort of more desirable for lamb carcasses, and there weren't that many terminal sire options. So yeah, that was the original appeal for Wiltshires for my family, and you almost pretended they didn't shed at that point in time because all was worth something. So yeah, that was sort of just an unintended consequence in a way, and obviously that's moved over time, and there's been a swing towards the shedding end of Wiltshires.
That was sort of the beginning of the real start of the demise of the wool. It really started to drop off 80s.
Pretty much, yeah.
80s and 90s.
There's been a few blips, but yeah, in general.
I had a small flock in the 90s, and I was buying stud rams, Romney rams, and it was starting to get marginal whether it was worth shearing them at that point. It was just starting to, really starting to drop off, and of course it's progressed from there to where we are now, which wool has become the total byproduct. And it's interesting you mentioned like the leaner carcass and the bigger carcass. Prior to that, lamb was almost the byproduct, wasn't it?
Yeah, like at that time, yeah, meat was in a real lull actually, and yeah, but yeah, I mean, like any point in time, you sort of try and look in the crystal ball, and we're in a lull right now with sheep meat and all sheep products really, but that's the nature of sheep farming in many ways. You go in your cycles, and it's a matter of riding it out and carrying on and keep improving and trying to find where you can just sort of make a few small wins, and then the worm will hopefully turn, and you can capitalise when the markets are better. So yeah, you have to sort of be a bit optimistic, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward, I think we're going to have to see a shift in sheep farming to survive.
Yep.
We've got to compliment New Zealand sheep farmers, because look what's happened over the last many years. Like the best land's been swallowed up by dairy cows.
Yeah.
We're producing as much or almost as much with a lot less animals.
Yep.
So our production has increased greatly on the more marginal land.
Yeah, and the feed efficiency's gone up, which means less carbon footprint. All of those. So there's so many good stories, and yeah, and I 100% agree. New Zealand sheep farmers have done an incredible job of increasing their performance and productivity of their flocks, and that's for everyone to pat themselves on their back. But I think the next phase is with that. Everybody's capitalised on that, all the service providers and the seed companies and the mechanics in town and the fertiliser people and research and all sorts. So everybody's enjoyed the increased production of New Zealand sheep farmers, but and they've been part of that too. But the next step for the sheep farmers, I think, is to try and strip some of the costs out of their businesses, and because that's probably the only way forward. So we can't have just more lambs, because more than 2 or 3 lambs per ewes, you've probably past the optimum. So the reality is we've got to start stripping some of the costs out, and the first ones to look at are where we aren't getting the returns, and that's the wool related costs and chemicals that we apply and other things. So yeah,
absolutely. I was talking to a couple of farmers, and it's interesting too. I was actually at a jet boat event, and you start talking sheep, and you see the ears prick up, and you look at their clothing, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's a sheep farmer. There's a sheep farmer.
I've got 2 layers of wool on, but that's right.
But the gum boots. The ute, the dog box on the back. So, and I just chat as I do, and I'm like, where are you farming? And that gets them talking. And it was Gisborne and 140% lambing. Talking to my other mate who owned the boat where I was working on, 140% lambing. And they're perfectly happy with that. They don't want any more. And it'd be interesting to look at the scanning rate to the lambing or tailing rate to the weaning rate. you know, because they're weaning 140%, which is really good going.
Yep.
And it's, you know, about the average for New Zealand, maybe just a little bit over, and that's a good result. So yeah, when you're looking at it, as you get up in that lambing, the scanning percentage, suddenly you start getting triplets, and then you get deaths.
Yeah,
and triplet management, and that's another cost. You know, ways of managing triplets.
Yeah, that's right, and that comes with, you know, some different skills and also different feeds that you need to provide for them, because the nutrition's obviously key with triplet bearing ewes, and but also you've got to maintain heavier Morrison lamb ewes, so that means you've probably actually got to pull your ewe numbers down to accommodate your more lambs too. So yeah, there's always those, and that's why, you know, people might talk about the percentages in the pub and what's good or bad, but there's a hell of a lot more profit drivers in a business than just you know, your weaning percentage, and you know, some people might be better off having more lambs, and if they're selling them all store before Christmas, or some want better lambs that they can, you know, get a good weaning draft and then have better lambs or heavier lambs later on. So who knows? But everyone's different. But yeah, I suppose it's just understanding your profit drivers in your business.
On those hard hill country blocks, there's nothing wrong with a good single. Like a nice single alive lamb is way better than 3 dead triplets.
Well, 3 dead triplets, you don't win it all, do you? But yeah, that's not ideal. But yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, well, one lamb would be 100%, wouldn't it?
Well, that's right. Yeah.
So, of course, so for a while you farmed as part of the family business.
Yeah.
And I think 2018 you made a shift to take sole charge with your wife Laura of this block.
Yeah.
So, with that change in business plan, there was a change in name for you.
Yeah. So no longer Morrison Farming on the Gullies Limited. So yeah, this farm here is it's bisected with some big gullies and gorges, and traditionally that's where the Wiltshires have sort of run. They're sort of a little bit feral by nature, and they're an animal that does a bit better with a bit of space and able to do their own thing a little bit. So it is well suited to them, and yeah, that's what we've moved towards. So with the move away from the bigger family business, we purchased the 2 seal recorded flocks, the Wiltshires and our composites as well, and also picked a couple of hundred Wiltshires off the top, and that was our starting point. So yeah, we've carried on with the original flock, I guess, and yeah, paid for the privilege for that, but yeah, that's our starting point into the next phase, I guess.
Yeah. So you've got that nucleus flock. You got the pick of that nucleus flock moving forward. Yeah. And are all of those ewes still recorded?
Yes. Yeah. So they were recorded in the early days originally when they family first got them on sheep plan, I think it was. So yeah, has always been that. It was relaxed for a couple of years in the middle there somewhere. I suppose as lambs got a bit tough for my father to catch and tagging at birth, and then, well, once I'd left university and into the sheep game, took it over again and started and put them onto sill. So we've, I don't know how long we've been on sill, but yeah, probably over 20 years now, and we just sort of carry on with that. So which is really good, and yeah,
right. Yep. So this sort of block. Now, if I read rightly, and I probably should mention, I'll do a little bit of the housekeeping. So I'll put a link to your website. So before I come down, I did check a little bit, and I was trying to work out the animal numbers. Actually, I went. It's a bit over 200 hectares. It's about 200 hectares effective, and I believe you breed some bulls for the dairy industry.
Yeah, I've got a small cow herd, so 50 Hereford cows, and just to support the sheep really. But sheep's that's where you want. That's your that's my gig and my game, and really, and yeah. So that's the key one.
And I sat down, and there was the 2,000 stock units was mentioned. And I found, I went cows, there's about 600 stock units and cattle. There's probably about 700 of each of the flocks of ewes, or 700
Yeah, well,
Because we're split between the two. Is that
yeah,
close to the numbers?
I'm about 50-50, my composites and my Wiltshires. So yeah, it's about 400 recorded ewes of Wiltshires and 400 recorded ewes of composites. So
you have a small commercial.
No, we did, but we've basically moved out of that into everything's recorded really now. So
you got 400 ewes of each kind, and then you've got your hoggets on,
and the hoggets as well,
and you've got because of course you keep your rams, your sale rams coming through, and I'm not here to sell your rams. I always try to tell people that just because I'm sitting down and chatting with someone, I'm not endorsing your product, but of course we do know that you sell rams, and you're trying to provide good quality chunky rams. You've got your pure Wiltshires for the people who want that as pure, as we discussed earlier, that pure Wiltshire stock. That composite shedding animal, what is that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, yeah, the composite, I'd love a better name for them, but essentially it's a concept sheep really, which is it's always been sort of once a year shearing of the ewes. Don't need to shear lambs, no belly wool, no crutch wool, and it's just all about performance. It's not not any breed specific. I can go out into the industry and just get really good performance rams of anything, as long as they contribute to bettering that concept or that breed, and they're pretty good sheep actually. I do really like them.
Not that you're biased.
No. I'm that's with as unbiased a hat as I can, and I've always said they're a far better sheep than the Wiltshires, and and I think that's fair enough. But they've also had the benefit of a little bit of hybrid vigour, and also being able to import genetics from really large flocks that are really good performance and well recorded. So it's been easier to make fast gains with them than it has been with a very pure Wiltshires when we've also been moving down the real shedding route for them too. So, but they've also been a critical part of improving our Wiltshires as well with a little bit of crossover. I've been able to make better gains with my pure Wiltshire flock by having some go into the composites as well, so the two do work well together. I think moving forward I'll probably pull more of the wool off the composites as well. There's other breeds available to be able to do that with now than just the Wiltshire, so that's cool. But the Wiltshire, it was also a pretty important ingredient for part of that. So Wiltshires were a smaller part of our business, with the majority being the composites. But it was important to maintain that resource, because there wasn't a lot of people doing the performance recording or maintaining a recorded pure flock. So it was important to sort of protect that resource as an ingredient to use. But now, with the industry pivoting towards shedding and taking costs away, all of a sudden the spotlight's probably more on the Wiltshire. So hence I've moved to sort of 50-50 and probably placing slightly more importance on the Wiltshire at the moment and getting that right. So that's probably pretty long-winded, but it once again, there's still shearing costs associated with the composite, but in terms of a productive animal, performance animal, they are better, and it's also sets the challenge. It's like I'm trying to breed the Wiltshires to be what they are, but to get that performance too, and they're not too far behind now, so that's quite cool.
So in your early days, we're going back and forth a little bit with the Wiltshires. How did you find animals to bring into your flock? Because there weren't very many.
It was tough, yeah. Like, to be fair, that's and we were breeding in a bubble for quite a period of time, to be fair. And it's I kind of see it like, and another reason why putting the 2 flocks on sill, it was at least we could benchmark where the performance of those Wiltshires were, because it's kind of like a village in Fiji might have the best rugby team in the world, but you don't know until they play another rugby team, and so you need to benchmark what you've got to the bigger population. So that's why we put the two flocks on sill, so we could actually see where their performance was at, and then try and progress it or advance it.
So in the early days, and if you look at the history, there's some notable names.
Yeah.
In the Wiltshires. Of course, the Morrison name was one of those. And I hope you can still actually have Christmas dinner with your brother. There's not a feud. I'm not going to get shot down.
Yeah, well, it's fairly amicable, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I just focus on doing my thing, and there's plenty of work to do around here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Because I work with my brother, and it's a new challenge trying to work in how things work. Because I step back from the farming because of just the dynamics of my family, and then so that's an interesting challenge that we have in farming, and trying to work your place. I'm the littlest brother, so I was always not really listened to, but when I get out there and I read lots and I study lots of what's going on, and looking and going back with the Wiltshires, getting back on track, you had some very common names come up, but not all of them were still recorded. I've got some now dispersed Glenbrae sheep. Holy geez, they're productive little things.
Yeah, well, the tailors were interesting, because they were fellow Hereford breeders as well, and Martin Taylor hated sheep at the time, and he basically let the wool shed go to wreck and ruin, and the sheep facilities were barely usable, but he got a bad ragwort problem moving to all cattle, and so he needed some sheep to tidy up the ragwort, and reluctantly, and so for a few years there they were taking all our cast for age ewes,
right.
And
so I've got some more of your some of your genetics are now in my.
That was a starting point. So they were good ewes, but they were old, and that was a starting point, and then he quite liked them, and then he lifted his flock, and then Dorpers came in, and he dabbled with them as well, and so I'd say there's probably a Dorper influence potentially. I might be speaking out of turn there, but yeah, and he built the flock up, and I think they moved locations, and became quite a significant sheep breeder in their own right. So, and did a bloody good job. So yeah, it's everyone's got their journey and their reasons why. But
of course, trying to find that equivalent or better stock when there's not a lot of choice for you guys would have been really hard, and you would have struggled for a long time.
Yeah, but it's really heartening now, because I think the better thing for the breed is if lots of people are doing a good job and shearing, and and that's how
shearing,
we learn.
The wool falls out of the Wiltshires, remember?
Well,
not shearing.
But
shearing knowledge,
shearing knowledge,
genetics.
expertise, genetics, everything. So learning and you do that by relationships and working together, and it's quite cool now that sort of starting to establish a few good working relationships with other breeders moving forward. So yeah, I think that's quite exciting.
Yeah, that's actually, again, that's a bit of a point too of, I think we're all on the same team.
Oh, absolutely.
And do you hate wool?
No, I love wool.
You're wearing a whole lot of it.
Yeah.
I normally have my merino on as well.
It's a great product. It's sustainable. It's got.
I didn't hear its golden value though. I can say that 100 times.
I 100%. And but there's a dispel a few myths, and it was a shame when the previous Minister for Agriculture sort of on a call said, "How dare you farm Wiltshires and
yes. And
and back your wool industry and do that."
Wait a minute. But where did they? What did they threaten to put into schools?
Well, exactly. Well, probably another story. But yeah. But the reality is too is that feeds a few myths, and people think, if I buy a Wiltshire Ram and put it over my Romney or Cookworth flock, I've given up and everything's lost.
Yep.
And but your first cross, you might start to open up the belly and the crutch, but you won't actually lose a hell of a lot on your.
That's worth nothing anyway.
What's
a belly worth?
No, but yeah, well,
what's that worth?
What's the fleece worth too? But yeah, you're actually not undermining the quality of your product too much. And you can always, if you don't like the direction, you can always retreat and go back, and you haven't actually lost anything. So and I know at Massey they're basically doing a trial, putting a few facts and figures and objectivity around the decision of swinging from a traditional ewe flock towards a Wiltshire flock, and actually putting some numbers around that process and those decisions, which is quite cool. So because all's not lost.
That with that study, and one of the myths is Wiltshires grow slower. Guess what the results on that study are so far?
Yeah, and negligible.
The yielding is better. Well, it's not hard to work out. If you've got a lamb, especially an early born lamb, a good Wiltshire lamb, many of them will shed by Christmas. They will have lost some wool, so they're not carrying 1.5 kilos, 2 kilos of wool. Well, there's more meat yield because they're not carrying the fleece. So it's really interesting to look at that study and where it's going. I'm keeping an eye on it.
Yeah,
I don't have enough information to really comment fully on that, but it's really interesting to see what they're actually doing there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't be leaping to any conclusions about this equals this, but I think all it's really proving so far is you're not losing anything. So right. Time will tell, but yeah, it is interesting.
I've got some mates, and they talk to me with what I'm doing. They see that I'm going to different open days or talking to shedding sheep farmers, and they give very good reasons to keep their wool. Their stock have been on that farm for so long. It's a facial eczema hotspot, and their sheep are reasonably tolerant to it now. They're suited to that ground. The wool's a management tool. I can shear them and meant to make it eat more so it grows better and all these sorts of things. But it's interesting, some of them are softening where they go, what about those ones that do lose their belly? And around the breech for the dags. Then they've gone from, no, I'm not touching those things at all, to what's going on there? How is your composite shear once a year sheep going into the market? How's that being received by farmers?
Well, I suppose a lot of people don't see the middle ground. They sort of think, well, if you shear it, you may as well grow heaps of it. And and people have their A flock that they'll breed their replacements from, and the others go to a terminal sire, and these composites, they're not necessarily the best terminal sire in the world, because and that's simply because there's selection for facial eczema and worm tolerance and maternal attributes as well. So it hasn't been just focused on carcass and lamb growth rate. But yeah, so people don't often see the middle ground, and then they make the decision they want to have no wool whatsoever, because then I don't need the shearers full stop. So a lot of people sort of miss the middle ground a little bit, but yeah, I can say that and again I just quite like relationships with the people that we work with and where rams go to, and the people that have our composites, absolutely love them, and love that direction, and yeah, it's quite cool, quite heartening.
Are they designed as a terminal, or
yeah,
as
essentially? It's like it's a maternal terminal, I suppose. So it means it's designed to breed your own replacements from that, but it's focused on as much heavy. As many heavy lambs going out the gate as possible.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually see room for working together for those guys with strong wool breeds, and I would like to. Well, I believe that shedding sheep are going to be part of the solution for wool. We need to grow better quality product, so the ones where it's a bit marginal, lots of sticks, not the greatest animals. Those farmers need to go we need to cut our costs. we're going to go for a shedding type sheep or once a year shear, cut back those costs, use that, and that shedding stomach round the breech would actually work really good as a full terminal sire flock, as such as they buy that sheep from somebody and they just put a terminal ram across the whole lot. So they've got a very easycare ewe. She comes in partway, nearly to weaning her lamb. She gets shorn. That's her once a year shear. Lambs are weaned. She goes out the back. Pretty much forget about her for 2 or 3 months until the ram goes out. Just leave her to do her thing. But there needs to be a supply of them into that system of that kind of ewe. I've got a mate who often puts 90% of his lambs on the truck before Christmas. He puts a pole Dorset ram across cast off mixed age ewes. He buys mixed age ewes wherever he can. Pole Dorset ram, the whole lot. Every single lamb goes on the truck. He doesn't keep a single lamb. And I can see that shed belly ewe or very easycare ewe working very well on that.
But if he just buys them when he gets an opportunity at the sale yards, it's sort of what's available, isn't it? So,
that's right.
So, yeah.
But it's a matter of too, if you've got to have a supplier, have contracts and work together with farmers who, if they're growing wool, they've got an option of putting one of your type terminal ram across the bottom end of their flock. And the ewe lambs then go off as a secondary, and they put the whether lambs go on the truck or the ram lambs go on the truck. So we need to do a change of thinking in farming. There are times when working with with your lambs, and I would guess that your rams are out now.
Yes, just gone out really. So
gone out. So my mating is finished, pretty much. I've got my tail end ram out at the moment, and my 5 ewes that he's marked are getting sold. I've already got a buyer for them. They're gone. I put them to a pure Wiltshire ram.
Yep.
To try and get those earlier lambs. So I've got July, August born lambs, and I'm selling ewes that are late August, beginning of September. And it's interesting when we come down here, and I've got some other friends, Paiatua, in this sort of area, they're just putting the rams out now.
Yeah, so Christmas comes at the wrong time for us. So our lambs are just sort of coming right about Christmas time when... and it's always a mad rush because you want everything sort of weaned or tidied up and fly spray on and take your weaning draft as close to Christmas as possible, so it's a chance for them to get as many away as you can before the works closes for Christmas and everyone goes on holiday and the schedule drops about then too. So, and it's quite good to sneak a few ewes into the works sort of Christmas time, so if you're running out of feed or whatever, you haven't got them through the whole period.
As you're talking about getting those ewes and stuff into the sale, if
it works, yeah. So, but then
if you don't have to, if you've got a shedding sheep, you go, well, I can delay the fly strike, and Wiltshire's they're sheep. Sheep get fly strike, but it's greatly reduced, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, they are just sheep, and you they do what they do. But yeah, I mean, why do sheep get fly strike? And there's generally it's because they have dirty bums, and the more wool around the bum, the dirtier they can get, I guess. And Wiltshires don't seem to have dirty bums, so there's no wool there, nothing to catch the dag, and yeah. So yeah, there's also other factors, but yeah, Wiltshires come with a few freebies, and yeah, I suppose you don't seem to get many bearings, you don't get many cast ones, and
ones, none.
No, they don't tend to get cast, and you don't get fly strike. So yeah, that's pretty good, really. I don't think I've had a cast ewe at all in the 3 years I've had my few. I've only got a few. I touch wood, I haven't had a bearing, but a friend of mine had one, and she's now on the chiller. She won't get a bearing again. They come with a few quirks, though. They've got a few personality issues. Well, no, they've got a personality type, I suppose, and that's not for everyone. Some people love them, and some don't. They make good pets because they're quite bright, but some people don't like that. They're always trying to sort of get past you or put one around you, and yeah, I suppose it's kind of like a feral animals. They tend to be smarter, but pretty free moving. But yeah, that's not necessarily for everyone. and they're better left alone. You know, the more interruption, especially around the lambing time, and that you can disrupt that bond with the ewe and the lamb potentially. And it makes sense, you know, the traditional breeds, they've been tagging lambs with mum on their lambing site right next to you for years and years, and the Wiltshires probably haven't really had that. So yeah, they come with their quirks.
My main ewe will just run straight through me if there's a dog behind me, and then because I've got an old pig dog, she hides behind me from the sheep. So I now have a ewe in front of me that's just going to go straight through me. She's not being mean, she's just going to get the dog. She just doesn't like dogs. So that was a bit of a challenge. I get given a bit of crap because my sheep are so quiet.
Yeah, well,
and so
it's interesting. The truck drivers that pull up, they see the Wiltshires and their heart sinks, and oh, not Wiltshires, and that's mostly because they're used to loading lifestyle as Wiltshire sheep onto the truck that are heavy and slow and won't move, and they have to pick each one up and put them on. But they get to mine, and I rattle like that, and they all fly on in about 30 seconds. So yeah, it's a bit of how you manage them too.
There's a lot of differences in the way Wiltshires are, though. You know, we've got a lot of variants in New Zealand flock, from those very free-moving ones to big fat things that actually are not ideal. I'm getting rid of some of the big fat ones to tone them down a bit, just trying to even up my flock a bit. I've got my ones, I had to, because they are so smart, shake the pellets, because I wanted to do videos with sheep.
Right. They do train pretty well.
It wouldn't be great to go, hey look, there's my ewes at the back of the paddock. That'd be fantastic. I was like, so it took me like 6 months to turn 80% of my ewes into almost painfully friendly.
Yeah.
And I have somewhere I could actually walk them up. Here comes a little one.
Here come the shepherds.
Yeah. They would be the 7th generation.
Yep.
7th generation there.
Hey, Fergus. Come on.
So this country's got to help with not breeding parasites quite the same. Like it's quite dry.
Well, no, we're on the west side, so it's dry right now, but it's not necessarily typically dry, I guess. But also there's sort of 70 hectares of bush and gorge, and it's full of deer and goats and other things. To be fair, it probably is wormy-ish country actually, and hence the reason why breeding for worm tolerance is one of our mix as well.
And the facial eczema.
Yeah, like it's not far away is the Turkana Valley, which is a hot spot. We're a bit higher in altitude for most of the farm here, but it can be an issue, and we're breeding towards as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've got a bit of chat going on.
That's right. Here's the other part of the team.
Yeah.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Come on, that's Henry,
Hello,
Fergus,
Henry.
and Laura.
Hi, nice
Hello.
to meet you, Calvin. Welcome.
When I was trying to find out a little bit,
Yeah.
I could find Laura, but I couldn't find much about you. Does your Airbnb go well? Because you have a little Airbnb as well.
Yeah, you drove past it on the way in. It ebbs and flows for sure. We've got someone there that's there for 5 weeks at the moment.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it just grumbles over, and
Yeah.
So it's pretty full on, trying to kind of find that balance.
On the money thing, would this farm make money as a sheep and beef farm if you weren't selling rams and selling bulls?
No, it's in terms of stock units, as a one family operation. It's probably on the too small side for to be viable. So we need value add to make it work, and whether that's a few bulls, a few rams, the accommodation or whatever else, that's basically what makes it work. So
yeah, because that's something I look at on our farm. It's 126 hectares effective, 156 in dairy grazers. We've got to make more money out of it.
Yeah, and it's not an easy problem. It's not an easy farm in terms of its layout and where it is too and how it works. So it's kind of a full-time job, even though so I can't really run the farm effectively and properly if I'm sort of working as well. So you definitely need to add a bit of value.
Because the big gully, is that a hindrance or is it a nice aesthetics to have?
Yeah, it is.
You just got to work around it.
Yeah, it is nice, but it's not one gully. It's probably 3 main gorge systems running straight through it. So yeah, it's it's not easy. And it's sort of a bottleneck at the front too, so every time you sort of move animals forward, you sort of then got to have something to go back to otherwise you're just constantly running out of feed at the front, and it's always handy. Like right now it's a challenge because single sire mating all the ewes, so they're all out there, but you know, the ram lambs and things, you sort of don't want them leaking into your ewe mobs, so they need to be sort of a part where you can keep them isolated. So yeah.
Across 400 of each model of sheep. It's 400 Wiltshire ewes. How many are they split into?
So
mobs.
Yeah, so both of them, it's basically 5 mobs for each of the
main rams.
So I guess the ratio, it's about 80 ewes to a ram, and that means if one ram goes lame, I can sort of box it with another and they can cover it. So yeah, that's sort of how it's gone. Which is slightly more at the moment, just because did an AI program with 40 ewes too. So I guess but
which AI? What your AI with? Are you allowed to tell me?
Yeah, no, that's just working as the new sort of shedding sheep group, I guess. And that's had the availability to put a ram into the central progeny test. So so that's really good, and also like-minded breeders, I guess, to basically get connectivity or connectedness. Interrupted, Kelvin. So what were we talking about?
The central progeny group.
Oh yeah, and the shedding ram.
Yeah,
the shedding group ram.
I don't know a lot about that shedding group stuff.
Oh, it's all pretty new, to be fair. It's going to have to find its feet and work out what it actually is. But at the moment it's a very loose group that's had the opportunity to share genetics and via the ram that they've chosen for the CPT, and then moving forward into next year, it'll have to knuckle down what it actually is and what the rules are and who's involved, really. So yeah, that's where it's at now, really.
So CPT,
Central Progeny Trial. So that's what to make Sill's figures robust and connected and work. Essentially, it needs to run a couple of central progeny trials to connect, to provide connectedness to the flocks.
Yes.
So it's an important part of that whole SIL program, really. So and generally it likes to use rams that have rams going to lots of different farms that have really good connections, that are probably the breeds that are most used by New Zealand farmers. So that's tended to be sort of the more traditional sort of ram breeders and the big guys. But with the swing towards the shedding sheep, they've sort of thought, oh yeah, we need one of those, a component to that, to work out where it is, which is really good, and so hence the spot was sort of given to a shedding sheep, to sort of bring all of those. You'd describe them as the traditionally fringe breeders, I guess, into the mainstream fold, I guess. So but it'll be really good in validating the figures of all the shedding breeders. So yeah.
So because shedding sheep still aren't quite mainstream, are they? They're getting there.
No, mainstream's talking about them, and there's a lot of mainstream sort of heading that way potentially, but no, you still wouldn't describe it as mainstream yet.
I'd like to know how many of the flock were actually the national flock.
Yeah, don't know.
Don't know either.
I would say not huge at this stage.
There's a lot of shedding sheep out there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of farmers with them who have hidden their sheep behind the sheds.
Yeah, a lot of people have almost been uncool. So but I think you're right. Yeah, in terms of the percentage of a national flock, though, you still
I
pretty
think a
small.
single digit.
But yeah, but it is growing.
Not
Yeah.
right now, though, because we've got a visitor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I did have, which was where is the future, which you've kind of sort of covered a little bit.
Yeah, well, the future for me is to take all the good points that sheep farmers in New Zealand have done in the last period of time and to start stripping costs out of their systems. And everyone's different on what they think that looks like or what that is. But I think the shedding sheep and Wiltshires are a part of that thinking.
I think that's correct. Part of the thinking, not everything. They're not the answer, but they're part of our solution moving forward.
Yep.
That we need to work on. So, and I think that's really, really important when we're looking down. I don't want to hassle or knock the guys that have been farming wolf sheep for a long time, but if I had a part of my business that constantly lost money in my automotive business, people would look at me like a crazy man.
Really?
But with wool, they like, well, that's the way it has to be. It doesn't have to be. We actually need to change that thinking a little bit, try new ways of thinking. And I'm a New Zealand farmer. I grew up with my parents, my brother. We're very change resistant. We like to just keep doing what we've always done, but it's not working. So we need to do something different. And it's taken time to go from the 14 kilo carcass to the 20 kilo carcass. What's the next step? Do we need to actually do a 24, 26 kilo land carcass? Is that where we're going to go?
Well, it depends on what the market will dictate and where the product goes and what they want.
The social media marketing and getting things out there and getting information going. And getting the right information about what people are doing.
I commend you on what you're doing, because it's not easy. And I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to a lot of that stuff. But yeah, there's I suppose there's the fringe farmer community, and you'd put a lot of the Wiltshire farmers in that. It's how do you connect them, and that's often through social media platforms or whatever. So putting a learning resource around that is pretty good. And mainstream farming is quite well, communities quite well serviced through the rural newspapers or your beef and lamb field days or other things, but that doesn't necessarily cater for people that are doing something a little bit different. So it doesn't mean they don't need information or knowledge or share ideas. It's just how can you do it in a meaningful way.
That's right, and I'm trying to be unbiased. I'm not selling rams. I've actually got another video coming up with a guy who's been just swapping over for 6 years. The New Zealand farmers are also quite conservative. They don't always like the camera. So I was really pleased when I rang you out of the blue. Like, I don't know whether you've seen any. You actually hadn't seen any of my videos or any of my stuff. I just had to name drop a couple of people, and you were very open to the idea. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity to come down and have a chat with you, because you're actually very approachable.
I just like sharing ideas with like-minded people, really, and I mean, we're passionate about what we do, and we enjoy sort of rubbing shoulders with people that share those passions. So I think that's always pretty good, eh? Yeah.
So again, to be unbiased, I need to talk to people, and it's not actually about me. It's about what you're doing. There's no right or wrong for me, but I love that shedding, leaving the belly on thing. Taking the belly off, leaving the rest of it. But I'm not sure the wool farmers are a bit funny. Again, getting their head around it. The guys that adopt it and go, yes, it'll work for me.
Yeah, I think the world's moved on a bit, really. It's like, you're not the villain for actually trying to do things differently now. It's sort of like, good on you, have a go. It's sort of, it's fairly accepted, isn't it? So there has been a shift in farmer thinking, I reckon. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
And of course the wool guys are going, oh wait, we've been doing this for so long, and they used to hassle you guys for having those scruffy things that they dropped all over the paddock. You were given a hard time. I can only imagine the hard time you were given by your neighbours. But then what I've seen is the first farm and then the next one up the valley and the next one and the next one. Suddenly the whole valley's in shedding sheep.
It's funny though, there's as many people, I reckon, where it's the old person in the business that was probably been entrenched with their ideas for so long, they've finally got to the stage where it's like, yeah, nah, bloody sick of it, and a lot of the time they're the ones leading the change and almost encouraging the next one to, yeah, go on, just get in and do it. So yeah, there's as many sort of where it's the person that you'd least expect that's probably driving a bit of the change too.
I met a guy at Wanganui, and he's in his 60s, 1,000 shedding ewes, had them for 10 years. He had lambs on the truck at Christmas time, 18 to 19 kilo carcasses, pre-Christmas. I think it was early December, and he'd already sent a truckload off.
Yeah. But some
just
of them
no mucking round.
But some of them are also like, oh, I'm getting old and tired now. I can actually farm for a little bit longer if I take some of my work away now, and it's not too late to sort of make the change and do it. So you get those guys in their 60s that are like, well, if I have to work with sheep for another 10 years, I might as well take some of the work away. And who cares if they're a little bit less productive, it's like that's still worth it.
And those guys know how to farm sheep.
Mm.
They're like, this is easy, we know how to make these things work.
Yeah.
And they go out and they find those good sheep. They're not, often if they've got their mortgage under control, they can go buy good quality ewes, so they get good quality results.
And a lot of them have done that. They, instead of breeding up, they thought, bugger it, I'll just go and buy some females.
No different to wool sheep. There are crap Wiltshires out there, as you know. There's good ones and there's poor ones. Same with wool sheep, no different. But it's getting the good ones and making sure that as an industry we don't rate the good ones based on the poor ones.
Them all together. That's right. Yeah. And that's why also you've got to take that massy research with a pinch of salt too, because you're judging it on when there's only little differences, you can't attribute that to the breed necessarily, because there's probably more of a ram effect or something like that there. So yeah, that's those small little marginal differences, you can't necessarily say it's a Wiltshire thing, but what you can say is like, you dispel the myth that you're not losing a whole lot, because
on the testing, you're a feck, not a Carla, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a feck, and I was watching your video, and it's interesting. So I don't know what's the better or worse way, and it probably doesn't matter. The reality is, the lab's really good the people are really good to work with feck, and there's probably more breeders on feck than there is Carla. So being connected for that trait for breeding for worm tolerance, it's probably easier for me to do it on feck than it is Carla, just because there's more people potentially to work with. But then in saying that, I'm not throwing the Carla out, but you do your little checks and balances, and when I do the feck, I sort of cull the ones that score really badly for it, and often they're the real small, sort of worse animals, sort of physically, and that makes sense because they're putting so much energy in fighting worms and that they're not growing and not performing. So to me that means that doing that way, it's actually sort of working in a funny sort of a way too. So yeah.
I'm doing the same with my ewes. My little ones, they're gone. Which ones were dirty in the back end a month before the others?
Yeah, but it was interesting this year because I drenched them at weaning to put them all on a level playing field, and I just couldn't get the worm counts up high enough. So they were done. I did them 2 days ago. So that's and they're still probably marginal on how high their worm counts were. Yep. So that it's taking a long time for that worm to build up to be able to get a good collection. Yeah.
Because I'm doing a Carla video tomorrow, of course.
Yeah.
I'm going to go see Richard tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and more about that one. Because one it's potentially damage over the tongue versus what they're shedding out the other end. But I see it as, well, what you're really trying to breed is worm tolerant sheep, and as long as you
tolerance or resistance.
Well,
because you've got facial eczema tolerant sheep, haven't you?
yeah.
That's what you've been, because facial eczema's been part of your breeding. Because you know, and then so tolerance, and there's different meanings to the word tolerance and resistance, and they can be interchanged. They can be interchanged.
And I get confused.
Okay,
but to be fair, it's like facial eczema tolerance, and it's nothing actually to do with facial eczema spores. It's the toxin that they, you know, the sporidesmin that those spores do. It's how the animal is affected by that, and so you're breeding towards animals that are essentially resistant to that toxin, eh?
I see the fact that you're actually you're measuring the same thing with doing your feck. An animal that doesn't perform well with worms, with parasites. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what you're measuring.
Yeah.
Just one, you're dealing with the back end of the sheep, and one you're dealing with the front end of the sheep, and one of them you're measuring the immune response. And so Carla, the response that you're measuring is a resistance. So the sheep is actually fighting that parasite to stop it putting more worms onto the paddock, which theoretically that sheep should have a very low fecal egg count.
Potentially, yeah.
It's just, both are subject to environment, both are subject to different test techniques. If you don't test it correct, they're both subject to problems. If you don't load them up properly, they've both got there's very similar issues with both lots. So very similar. Build a better sheep, but that's what you're trying to do. Make a better sheep. At the end of the day, that's all you're trying to do. Is breed a better sheep.
And put a selection pressure
use
on
the
it.
best technique, and I do see a lot of farmers, a lot of breeders going, well, to compare, I need to use feck because other people are using it. And I think, you know, we're going to see that as a consideration, and it's a fair consideration.
Well, and it might even be moving forward doing both.
Cost, but that's money.
That's right.
You know, can you also do a 48-day weaning, weighing for your lambs, please?
Well,
to see how your lambs are growing.
The other conflicting thing is doing the worm tolerance or the feck. I've also at the same time they getting their bloods for their GGT for facial eczema, as well as trying to treat them or soon for do a weight on them and their muscle scan. So there's a lot of things going on for those animals at that point in time, and doing another data point collection, it just makes it harder again.
Maybe we need to do IgA serum, do this blood test for your facial eczema and for your Carla. Maybe that will come an option one day. It's not now, but there's those things that we got to. But of course we're moving forward. We're going there. There's going to be ear tags for feed efficiency soon. So I believe. It measures the head movement and how much they're eating, because they use them in the emission testing for methane. And I've got a mate in Australia that does it. So you'll be going and looking at those different options. There'll be other ways of testing sheep. I think we're going to see a lot of growth in sheep production. We're going to be able to improve it greater. As long as more farmers get on board.
Oh, you've got to have your number of people doing it, otherwise you'd get too diluted, eh?
That's right. So I actually think at some point in the future I'll probably have to come down again. And maybe when we've got a little bit more time and the weather's a little bit more nice.
It'd be nice to actually get out where there's a better backdrop and probably some wind in the background and not some little voices. But that's.
I could probably get some brownie points booked into the cottage for a weekend, and then I can disappear off and do boy things.
Yeah, well that's a pretty good idea, eh? And you'll enjoy that. It's quite nice there. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. When you don't have a long-term lesson there. That'd be fantastic. And have a catch up, you know.
No, exactly.
Hey, thanks so much for having a chat today. I'm sure I've got a list in my car, and I've actually pretty much nailed all of that. I try really hard just to do some pointers and some just little things to get you talking, and you just talk. It was lovely because it wasn't actually scheduled or planned as such of what we're going to talk about. Very natural, so I really enjoyed it. And thank you very much for your hospitality today and meeting the little fellas. And your other half, who of course, that was where I found. I was trying to find stuff about the farming side, and she gave me more information and of course the website. It was all Laura.
So it's your time to actually have a little bit of, and have your face out there, which is great. And the seventh generation, who might or might not be farmers in the future.
There you go.
Hey, very much.
Very good.
Thank you very much.